Okie dokie smoky. Will the real John Brown please stand up? Please stand up. Gotta represent the millennial attitude there. But let's get into it, shall we? I'll stop playing with that wrench. Listen to this Behind the Bastards podcast, which I don't really recommend necessarily, but what's his name? Evans. Robert Evans. The guy who records Antifa, this and that, works for Bellingcat. Notorious pro CIA sort of shit. Has this podcast this program called Behind the Bastards, and also It Could Happen Here. But on this Behind the Bastards, he was talking about John Brown. John Brown. A lot of things I didn't know. And it was funny on numerous levels because, of course, they fetishize this nigga as if he was the real deal, this and that. And he's fought against slavery. Whoa. But of course, they're both just brain dead, sort of barely lefties who are like, oh, he's so bad because because he was a fundamentalist. That's really what he was. He was raised as a Calvinist. Played around the woods and all this sort of thing. He's very much of that ilk and of the time, right? Which, if I was more literate about religion and the history of various religions, then I could tell you more about Calvinism, but I won't because I don't. And that would just turn into a whole lot of bullshit. But I think it's interesting. Of course, they give the comparison with Willem van Spronsen. For those that don't remember, Willem van Spronsen was a Dutch immigrant. I guess he was a guy from the Netherlands. I'll put it that way. He was in the United States, as far as I know, a legal citizen, who opposed the child concentration camps and all that sort of thing. And now, of course, people are going to say it didn't really happen like this, but ultimately, they said he just shot at a bus. Other people say that he was shooting at a propane tank that was attached to the building, which probably could have killed migrants that were in detention in Tacoma, Washington, where I was born. But they make this comparison, and they talk, of course. But it was hilarious on a deeper level because they're like, "Oh yeah, it was so good that he said that. Hell yeah, he was a hardcore abolitionist." But then when it came to him getting rid of the Constitution, saying that this country needs to start over, they're like, and they the same thing when they were talking about Nat Turner and him killing white kids and babies and stuff like that. They're all like, "Oh, that's killing babies and stuff like that," and all this sort of. They're doing all this sort of damage control for people like him. And of course, John Brown, because they, of course, didn't like the fact that he was a Calvinist and, a fairly hardcore one who didn't want to have fun and believe that you were always sinful, that sort of thing. Which led in, and of course, they rightly compare it to evangelicalism. But of course, they're all, pretty much if they consider themselves left-wing, they are pretty much just atheistic folks who, to a point, they need Christianity to survive. That's the whole thing. Otherwise, they would just be these cranky spurgs, in my opinion. But that's a whole other thing. That's the whole diatribe about atheism. The thing is, it brings me an interesting point. There's so many people who LARP about John Brown. And of course, John Brown, I think, was just an example of a zealot who made things, and seemed like a woke white person and whatnot. As the commentators say, Robert Evans and whoever the hell else that chick was, who just sounds like a complete shit lib sort of person. He's like, hell yeah, white people are awful, but then of course is like, but killing white people, I don't know about that. Oh, and of course, that they'll be like, well, he was a terrorist, but he, was a good terrorist, and they make all these excuses. Of course, it's funny because Robert Evans is on iHeartRadio and works for Bellingcat, like I said, and so he knows who's paying the bills, and he has to do his ads and stuff like that. So it's like he's never gonna be a real force for change. And of course, he just sounds like a dickhead. But anywho, less about them. Let's talk more about John Brown. And, there are a lot of folks who LARP about John Brown. And of course, ignore the fact that he was a religious zealot. But more of this has become commodified. This has become something to make money at. The Voshes of the world and the Hassan Pikers of the world have commodified the image of the anti-racist and the anti-fascist. They have commodified it. They have made it so it's profitable to do. The same thing with Robert Evans. These are people who, and I said I wasn't going to talk about, but here we are. These are people who say, oh, well, we need to fight fascism and whatnot. Fight fascism, though, while using Colgate. That sort of thing, right? That's really what we're talking about. They'll sell their merch and everything else like that. And we'll say, well, actually, because Engels was rich, it's okay that people like Hassan Piker can make money and he doesn't pay his mods and shit like that. It's okay. For reasons. Just the hypocrisy of it all. John Brown has been commodified, same way Che Guevara has been commodified. But people hold on to that LARP because because they can hide behind that. They can wear that shirt of, Che Guevara and feel strong. And they can hold up, and they can call themselves a John Brown gun club, for example, which is complete LARP. And it's all just places for white folks to feel like they're going to do something. And pretty soon those are going to be the ones that become like, suburbanites who, don't like, who have, Mexican lawnmowers and shit like that, and Mexican landscapers, I should say. So, but yeah, I mean, you can go ahead and praise John Brown all you want to. I personally just think he was a LARPer who imagined that he was going to invade the slave-owning states like he did in the war, in like the Johnson Wars and stuff like that. Well, not Johnson Wars. That was a little bit further north, but they explained that he was fighting in places like Missouri over slavery and killed 5 people, this and that, and drugged them out of their homes and shit like that. The thing is, man, is that none of that shit really exists because nobody, it's already been commodified and it's just an image. It's just an image to portray. That's all it is. It's just simply an image. And maybe I'm getting a little bit too esoteric here, and maybe I'm not as Christian as I should be, but it's merely something to say we are representative of them. We can fill the shoes of John Brown. And in reality, they can't. They can't on any level. But I guess I'll wrap it up with this: there's no real potential for a revolution in the United States. There's no potential for a civil war, as much as people want to LARP about it, because nobody's willing, at least right now anyway, to reach out to other countries. The American Revolution required the involvement of the UK. Well, obviously, on the UK, yeah, involvement in the UK, yeah. But involved France and Spain helping the United States. and also the Germans, because obviously people can talk about Captain or Major, depending on who you talk to, von Steuben, who was allegedly gay, who helped train the militia at Valley Forge. I mean, there's no real reaching out. They don't want to. Because, of course, a lot of the mainstream left and much of the larger left does not want to reach out to China. They don't want to reach out to Russia because, of course, they'll say China is fascist. Russia is fascist. These are countries we need to oppose. And they are simply playing into the game of the United States. And so it shows ultimately that they aren't willing to do that. And at best, they will have local skirmishes with the U.S. military and everything else, and they aren't going to succeed. That's the reality of it. I used to live in Larkville with balkanizations, things like that, but I realize now that I've sobered up a bit mentally, I realize that that's, they don't want to reach out to these other countries. They don't want to do all that. It's just a LARP. It's just a way to make money. It's just a way to get money with this dying system and get as much money as they can so they can live out their lives a little bit longer. That's all it is. And this idea that, some sort of John Brown is going to come back. I was going to say, is there, where is the real John Brown or whatever? Maybe I could retitle it that. I'm going to leave it with this probably, but go ahead and LARP about him all day. But he was a man of the time. What are you going to do? Antifa kid who more than likely, has a college degree or something like that, or, works at some, works at a I don't know, halfway house for prostitutes or something like that. It's just like, what are you going to do about it? I don't know. Anyway, that's all I got. Just me trying to be realistic about stuff. Hopefully y'all enjoyed that. See you later. Goodbye.